It is likely that a church has stood on the site of the present St. Mary's from ancient times, perhaps originally being constructed of wood, to be replaced later by stone. As mentioned earlier, the Domesday Survey of 1086 records that Sandbach had a church and a priest. In the present church, there is an ancient font and other stone features which probably date from the 12th century. William Smith, one of the officers of the Heralds' College in London, and himself a Cheshire man, referred in 1585 to a little town with a fair church of stone. And in 1621, William Webb wrote, "We turn again to view Sandbach, whose church and lofty steeple draws our eye to behold it." This is a photograph taken from the same position over 100 years ago. In the foreground there is the pool that used to exist at the bottom of the hill. To the right, the rooftops of Front Street can be seen, and on the left, the old hall. In the far distance, the chimney from Congleton Road Silk Mill, which we saw when we started the tour of the Common. This view of the church shows the interesting feature of the pathway which passes through the open arched base of the tower. There is a similar tower in Chester, that of St. Michael's Church, built over the Rose in Bridge Street. The snow and the bare branches of the trees make this a very picturesque view of St. Mary's. Here, in a view from 1890, the Church Hall building can be seen to the left. Whilst restoration, rebuilding and extension work was carried out over the centuries, a major restoration took place between 1847 and 1849. This was directed by George Gilbert Scott. Centuries of Cheshire weather had taken its toll of the original sandstone, and the old building, dating from 1661, was totally encased in new stone. This was thought to come from quarries at Mowcop. At the same time, galleries were removed, the 1661 carved oak ceiling restored, and the chancel lengthened by 36 feet. And we leave St. Mary's with a view from the east side of the town, as the sun sets in the west. Just below the churchyard we descend the steps to Front Street. Here, in 2004, the late afternoon sunlight casts its long shadows from the road above. Front Street has a mixture of Victorian and other houses. The ones shown here were only 20 years old when this photograph was taken in 1890. If we walk down Bath Street, past Dingle Villa, built in 1902, we arrive at the Dingle Lake. Before the opening of the nearby Old Mill Road, this was a tranquil area which holds many secrets, of which most Sandbachians of today are probably unaware. This area was formerly low-lying marshy ground, but around 1850 Mr. Walter Lee created an artificial lake with an island, boating shed, dance hall and open-air swimming bath. It was known as Happy Valley to the locals. It was obviously popular, and the North Stafford Railway Company produced posters to advertise it, transporting those from over the Staffordshire border to the station at Wheelock. The boating lake was very popular, and often long queues formed, waiting for the boats to become available. On a Sunday afternoon in 1911, a family are seen here out for a quiet row. In 1853, the new baths were described as, and again I quote, "occupying a pleasant position on the Newcastle Road, and are a valuable acquisition to the inhabitants of Sandbach and all others who might wish to avail themselves of their beneficial influence. They consist of a large plunge bath, slipper shower and vapour baths, and have an abundant supply of water." By 1938, the layout had been modified and is much the same as it is today. Here is a view of Dingle Lake, lightly frozen in February 2008, something not often seen in these days of mild winters. But in the winter of 1913, it looks like the whole town was out skating. Moving across Lower Brook traffic lights onto the Palmer Road estate, we can see the bypass and Waitrose supermarket. The same view here in 1966, with a young Anthony Minchell walking up from Factory Lane. And viewing the same area from the Waitrose car park, looking towards the roundabout. Here's how it looked some 70 years ago, with the silk mill superimposed in position. Here is a map from around 1870, showing the pool and the site of the original silk mill. And now a modern aerial view for comparison. From this aerial view, taken in 1956, we can see the size of this huge factory that was built in 1825 by Ralph Percival. It had around 365 windows and was 450 feet long. The mill started life being driven by water, and then was converted to steam, and finally to electricity in 1932. In 1908 it was leased by Lord Crewe to Messrs. G. H. Heath and Company Limited of Macclesfield, the biggest company of silk throwsters in the United Kingdom. The installation of electricity for light and power doubled the mill's capacity for production. In latter years it was approached along Factory Lane off Newcastle Road, which can be seen in the top left-hand corner of the picture. The sandbach factory was a supplier of silk to the hosiery trade, and the staff numbered around 1,000. Here we see ladies working in the reeling section making hank yarn. They include Mary Foster, Hilda Dale, Hilda Plant, Rennie Whitehurst, Nancy Buckley, and Minnie Bourne. The foreman is Henry Wilson. This is a view of the mill taken in the mid-1930s. The advertisement is from the local press at that time. For those of us unsure of the term throwsters, reeled silk is usually subjected to a process called throwing, in which the silk strands are twisted together to form a thicker, stronger, multi-threaded yarn. Throwing produces a wide variety of yarns that differ according to the number of strands and the amount and direction of the twist imparted. The mill was demolished in 1974. Retracing our steps to Lower Brook and looking up the hill, we get a glimpse of the almshouses. There are 20 dwellings, and in 1984 they were completely refurbished to bring them up to modern-day standards. In the chancel of St. Mary's Church are carved the names of a number of people who, in the 17th century, contributed to a charitable trust to help the poor and needy. As a result of an Act of Parliament in 1848, the trustees were allowed to use some of the funds to erect the 20 almshouses. Again, they were designed by George Gilbert Scott, as he was then, and built by Thomas Stringer of Sandbach and Samuel Farham of Road Heath. The houses contained 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, and a pantry. When they were built, they would be much superior to the houses in Hawk Street and Church Street, for example. There were a number of conditions which the occupants had to fulfill. One was to attend church on Sunday, and the keeping of dogs and pigeons was not permitted. In 1621, William Webb described Sandbach as a pretty market town, and the situation very delightsome. We hope that you have enjoyed this photographic tour of some of the buildings and sites of this pretty and delightsome market town. Even though many buildings have now disappeared, the town still retains its character, and it is hoped that this DVD will promote an awareness of our heritage and a concern for its protection and conservation.